The university lawn was buzzing that June afternoon, the kind of heat where the air itself feels like it's humming. Families filled the rows of folding chairs, cheering as names were called, waving signs, holding flowers. And then in the middle of it all, a hush rolled through the crowd. A name was announced, Isabella Hart. She wheeled herself forward in her gown, the sun catching her blonde hair. But no one stood, no one clapped. The silence cut sharper than any insult. Her own father, the powerful businessman everyone in the city knew, hadn't even bothered to show up. And then, from the very back row, a man stood. Rough hands, worn from years of work, holding tight to a little girl's fingers. They clapped, the sound echoing across the stillness. A single dad and his daughter breaking the silence for the girl nobody else dared to cheer for. Isabella turned, and for the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel invisible. Isabella hadn't always been the girl in the chair. Back in high school, she was top of every honor roll, the kind of student teachers bragged about. She was the only child of Victor Hart, CEO of Hart Dynamics, and her future looked bulletproof. But her father's world was business numbers contracts. Her world was words. She'd escape into novels, scribble poetry in the margins of her textbooks. Choosing literature as her major had been her tiny rebellion, one her father never forgave. Then came the accident. 2 years earlier, a drunk driver ran a red light and crushed the bottom half of her spine. She woke up 3 weeks later in a hospital bed, her father already negotiating with surgeons like they were stockbrokers. Every piece of her recovery was managed, bought, controlled. The friends she used to laugh with faded away. Her world shrank from campus halls to sterile corridors to the polished prison of her father's estate. But one day she'd been asked to read stories at a local elementary school. Just one favor, just once. She went reluctantly at first, and something shifted. Those wide-eyed kids leaning forward to hear every word, she kept going back. Week after week she read them fairy tales and adventures, and for the first time since the accident, she felt alive again. That's how she crossed paths with the man from the back row. His name was Michael Rivera. 35 shoulders built from military training and years of carrying burdens heavier than steel. Once upon a time, he'd been Captain Rivera, leading elite missions overseas. Now he was an HVAC tech, fixing broken air conditioners to pay the bills and raising his 6-year-old daughter Emily alone. His wife had died giving birth to Emily, and every day since he'd been both mom and dad. He learned braiding hair from YouTube tutorials, learned patience from trial and error, and learned to hide his own grief behind bedtime stories. Emily had written a school essay called Someone Who Inspires Me. She wrote about Isabella, the lady in the wheelchair who told stories that made dragons and heroes come alive. Her words won first prize, and part of that prize was reading her essay at the university graduation. That's why she was there tugging her dad along, standing in the back row, clapping for the girl no one else would. After the ceremony, Isabella wheeled herself away from the crowds. Behind the auditorium, she tried to disappear into the stone benches that had once been her refuge. But she wasn't alone for long. Emily came running, pigtails bouncing, clutching a crayon drawing. It was of a woman in a wheelchair, but with wings rising into the clouds. "I made this for you," Emily said shyly, "because in your stories, everyone can fly." Isabella's throat tightened. That simple drawing was worth more than every curated award her father had ever shoved into her hands. She whispered a shaky thank you, and when she looked up, Michael was standing there. He introduced himself, his voice calm but steady. "Michael Rivera, Emily's dad." She insisted we congratulate you properly. The name hit Isabella like a jolt. She'd seen it before on classified files her father kept locked in his study. "Michael Rivera," she repeated slowly, and Michael's eyes told her he knew she recognized it. Their stories, though miles apart, were tied by one man, Victor Hart. 7 years earlier, Michael had led a mission codenamed Iron Hawk. His team was sent to rescue hostages overseas. But the intel had been compromised, sold, leaked, twisted, and 2 of his men died in an ambush. Michael filed a report proving the leak came from within the Pentagon's procurement office. But the man overseeing that office back then, Victor Hart. The report was buried, Michael's honor stripped. He was forced to take a dishonorable discharge, blamed for failures that weren't his. He lost his career, his brothers in arms, everything but his daughter. And Victor Hart kept climbing richer than ever. Isabella and Michael should have been enemies. But Emily's innocent tug at Isabella's hand changed everything. Soon, Isabella found herself at the local ice cream shop, with them laughing at Emily's sticky face, feeling more human than she had in years. Those accidental meetings grew into routines, Saturday mornings at the library, Isabella reading to kids while Michael sat in the back pretending to read the paper, but really watching her. She painted at night, covering her tiny apartment walls with skies she couldn't touch, and Michael would sometimes call just to keep her company in the silence. He shared stories of his late wife, Sarah, how her laugh filled rooms, how she made him promise to tell Emily she was loved every single day. Isabella shared what it felt like to wake up in a body that wouldn't obey, how people only saw the chair instead of her. They both knew what it meant to be broken by something you didn't choose. But Victor Hart wasn't blind. When he found out about Michael, he showed up at his apartment one night. He didn't knock. He announced himself like a king returning to his castle. "Mr. Rivera," he sneered, "we need to discuss boundaries. My daughter is vulnerable. She doesn't need complications from someone like you." Michael's jaw tightened. "Your daughter is an adult. She chooses for herself." Victor leaned in cold as steel. "I destroyed your career once. Don't make me do more." But before Michael could reply, a voice cut through the tension. "Isabella." She'd rolled in silently, eyes blazing. "Like you destroyed Ironhawk. Like you destroyed me after my accident, enough, Dad. I'm not your project anymore." For the first time, Victor's power cracked. Isabella demanded the truth, and with the help of an old friend in cybersecurity, she uncovered the original Ironhawk files. Every damning detail. Victor's handwriting at the bottom. "Bury this. Use Rivera as the fall." She handed the file to Michael. Proof. Vindication. But she knew the cost. Within hours, her credit cards were canceled. Her medical insurance revoked, her wheelchair, accessible van repossessed. Her father's revenge wasn't fists, it was bureaucracy. She crumbled, crying, in an empty apartment, surrounded by boxes she couldn't lift. Michael sat beside her quietly, letting her lean against him. "I'm not crying because I regret it," she whispered. "I'm crying because I'm scared. I don't know how to live without his money." Michael squeezed her hand. "You learn, one day at a time, and you don't do it alone." With the help of Michael's veteran friends, Isabella rebuilt. A tiny ground-floor apartment paper stars Emily taped to the ceiling, state healthcare instead of elite clinics. She tutored online, budgeted pennies, swallowed pride. It was brutal, but she was free. And Michael watched with awe as the fragile girl from graduation transformed into a woman with steel in her spine, even if her legs no longer worked. Months later, he knelt in front of her wheelchair, holding out a modest ring. "I can't give you wealth, but I can give you mornings with terrible coffee, bedtime stories, with Emily, and love that doesn't see a chair. Only you." Isabella laughed through tears. "Yes. Yes to all of it." Emily squealed. "Does this mean you'll be my mom?" And just like that, their broken pieces clicked into place. The wedding was small wildflowers in jars, fairy lights and trees. Isabella wore a simple white dress, her wheelchair decorated with ribbons by Emily. Michael wore his old uniform pressed crisp by his brothers-in-arms. And when the music started, he surprised everyone. With months of practice and a hidden harness, Isabella stood. Just for 30 seconds, she stood in his arms, swaying to the song. The crowd wept. Michael whispered in her ear, "You're flying." At the edge of the garden, Victor Hart stood in the shadows. He didn't approach, but he left an envelope. Inside the deed to a fully accessible home in their names, and a letter confessing the truth about Ironhawk to the Pentagon. Too little, too late, but something. Isabella, Michael, and Emily moved into that house. Their first night they camped in the living room among boxes, eating cold pizza, telling stories by flashlight. "This is the castle of the Rivera family," Emily declared. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and love, Isabella realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was home. But here's where I'll leave you with a question. Do you think Victor Hart deserves forgiveness for finally telling the truth, but only after ruining lives? Or are some betrayals too deep to ever make right? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you've ever seen power used to crush someone, or if you believe redemption is possible after years of silence. Because in the end, this isn't just Isabella and Michael's story. It's about all of us and the choices we make when love and truth collide.